This is Huntsville Sports Weekly, where we talk all things Huntsville, Texas sports, Hornets, Bearcats, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Rob Hipp and Josh Criswell.
All right, friends, welcome to another edition of Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Rob Hibb, sports director here at KSAM, joined as always by my good friend Josh Criswell, the sports editor of the Huntsville Item. Josh, we got another great show. It's already episode 4, man. How is it already 4 weeks that we have been doing this?
I don't know, time flies by. I've been doing it for a month already, but really excited about our guest that we have today, Huntsville boys basketball coach Jay Oliphant. Coach Oliphant was a star for the Hornets back in the late 90s, went on to play at Sam Houston State, was a part of that Bearcats team in 03 that went on to reach the NCAA tournament, and of course has first built the girls basketball team into a power and now has done the same thing with the boys. And really excited to talk to him both about this year's team and just also kind of his journey. You know, Huntsville guy through and through, been here his whole life, so excited to talk to him about some of his experience coaching the Hornets and playing with the Bearcats and all things Huntsville sports.
You know, it goes back, Josh, we talk about it so much here on this show, just the history of this community, the heritage, the wonderful people that make Huntsville what it is, and a lot of those, of course, right here in the sports world. So we're excited to talk to Coach Oliphant today. We're going to hear from him. And then, hey, you guys have something going on before we talk to him coming up in this next segment. Something going on really great at the Huntsville Item, and man, we're talking football. It's right around the corner, Josh.
Yeah, finally. It didn't seem like it would ever get here, but we're finally here. Football, the Walker County's first football game coming up next Friday. New Waverly at home to take on Centerville. Just a quick note before we get what we're going to talk about here, which is our football magazine coming out as planned right now late next week. But New Waverly earlier today announced their stadium capacity restrictions for how they're going to be doing things over on the football side this year. Let me just get this for you, make sure I got these numbers right. So they're going to be allowing 432 all pre-sale tickets. So got to get your tickets beforehand. First priority goes to the family and then the student body. So not very many public tickets going to be for sale, but reach out to the school district. They're going to have a little over 400 allowed on the home side and then about 240 on the road side of things. So football is finally here. Like you said, we got our Huntsville Item Insider Walker County Preview Magazine, which Rob's showing on the screen right now. This year, we got a couple of really good things coming to you. Got, obviously, a couple of Huntsville features. Going to give some love to the big guys, as you can see on the cover. Really talented defensive line, you know, some of the best in the entire state right there. You know, Ed Babino, Quaterian Riles, Brian Babino, and Sebastian Patterson. You know, that defense has been the best in the area and easily the best in its district the past couple seasons. And I think with those four leading the charge, you're going to be headed towards another promising year for the Hornets.
Well, looking forward to it. Josh, you just briefly mentioned, but when is this magazine going out? Just in case somebody didn't catch that, when is it going out, and how can they get their hands on it? Because this is all in-depth Huntsville Hornet football.
Yeah, absolutely. Huntsville Hornet football, and then also New Waverly and Alpha Omega in there as well, and also some cheerleading and band stuff in there for y'all as well. But it's plans for it to come out late next week. Don't have the official date set yet, but we'll be keeping y'all updated. I'll make sure to put it out all on social media. Once we get it in the mail, it's getting out to you guys.
Well, Josh, and you know the excitement before we step aside and bring on Coach here in just a little bit, the excitement this year. High school football looks like it's a go. Now, there's still some unknowns, there's still some uncertainties, but we do know that as of right now, the gut feeling is yes, we will go. You talk about schools that are not 5A and 6A, but 4A and below. Those schools are getting started with scrimmages already coming up here very soon. They're allowed to start with the regular start date here coming up at the end of the month. And of course, your 5A and 6A schools pushed back a month at the end of September. That's going to make the video broadcast so important this year. That UIL restriction has been lifted, and we are allowed to do live video on Friday night. So we'll have it here on KSAM. Josh, I know that we're going to somehow bring you in as we do throughout the season. The work that you do at the Huntsville Item has simply been incredible. And I just wanted to say this publicly, Josh. You know, I came here last year, and you were a tremendous part of the success that we had last year. And so just to be public, I want to say thank you for all that you do, man. I couldn't do what I do without you, and I'm great and thankful that we have this partnership, man.
Absolutely. I'm just thankful to have someone else here. You know, I was kind of a one-man band last year. I'm just glad, you know, on the radio side, I now have a partner to kind of talk some of these sports with, and it's not just me doing it solo.
Awesome. Well, we're going to step aside and take a break. When we come back, we'll have that interview with Huntsville Hornet head basketball coach Jay Oliphant. Stay with us, friends. This is Huntsville Sports Weekly. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Welcome back to Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Rob Hipp, joined by Josh Criswell, and now joined by Huntsville head basketball coach of the boys team here in Huntsville, Coach Jay Oliphant. Coach, I missed some of the audio there at the beginning, but folks heard it at the end. That last year, it was the playoff matchup at the buzzer. Man, defeating my hometown at the time, Georgetown. I was a little bit torn because I was here in Huntsville calling football for Sam, but I'll be honest, I was cheering for the Hornets also. Coach, good to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about that game last year, man. That was an incredible run for you guys.
Oh, yes, it was a very exciting game. For the previous 5 years, I guess we had made it to the area round and got beat. But at that point in time, we had a couple of key guys foul out, and Deuce and Taylor made a heck of a play. It sent us to the next round.
Awesome. Well, Josh, I know that you've had a great relationship with Coach here for many years. Of course, Coach coming on in 2014, stepping into that role. Josh, take it away on this interview. I know you've got a lot of questions to ask, and we'll feed back in here in just a little bit.
Yeah, I think Rob touched on it a little bit. You talked about finally getting over that hump in the area around. For me, looking back at that video, though, one thing I noticed was your reaction after that play. Just, he stormed on the court. You could just see the joy and emotion on your face. What was that moment like for you, kind of getting that monkey off your back a little bit, but also seeing your team win a big game on that stage in such exciting fashion?
Well, it was extremely big. For the most part, the teams that we had in the past, including that team, they work extremely hard. We get after them real good in practice, and they work hard. Anytime you have a young team and teams that have success, you're happy for them more than anything. And we were just showing my happiness for those young men and the hard work they had put in throughout the school year.
Right, and Coach, we're going to talk a little bit about your team you have from last year and then also the one coming back this season. But first I want to go back, just talk a little bit about your playing days. We touched on it earlier, but started out as a star in the late 90s here in Huntsville, went on to play at Blinn and then Sam. What's kind of your basketball journey been like, and how cool has it been to kind of have this whole journey, with the exception of a year or two at Blinn, be right here in your hometown of Huntsville?
Oh, it's very big. Besides 2 years of my life, I've been here in Huntsville. I played basketball at Huntsville High for Coach McDaniel, played for him for 4 years, 3-year letterman. I had a pretty good success and left there and went to Blinn and played for Steve Sperling for 2 years and had success as well, and came here for Coach Marlin and we had success as well. So I've been playing for a lot of great coaches, and the knowledge that I got from them has carried me over into coaching, and that's where I am now.
Right, and you mentioned that, that 2003 Sam Houston State team obviously won the conference tournament and then went on to play in the NCAA tournament, I think for the first time in school history. Looking back on that, do you have a specific memory at Sam Houston State that kind of sticks with you the most?
It's just Coach Martin wrote us pretty hard. At the time when you played for him, you disliked him, but as a man, as a coach now, you can respect and understand what he was trying to get out of you.
Right, and you mentioned Coach Marlin. He actually keeps tabs on y'all, I know, because I saw him liking and retweeting a few of our tweets involving y'all last season, especially as y'all went on that playoff run. And, for you, what's it been like? Because obviously as a coach, and as a mentor to these young men, how rare has that opportunity been? Because I'm sure, a lot of these kids that you're coaching and kind of mentoring now are, the children of people that you went to school with or knew growing up. How much do you think that's allowed you to really connect to your kids on and off the court?
Well, I think it's big. Most of their moms, like you said, I went to school with, they know me extremely well. And they know I wouldn't do nothing to put their kid in jeopardy. Everything I do for their kid, I would do for my own. So with that being said, it enables me to coach them the way I want to coach them, and they understand and respect that.
Coach, talking a little bit more here as we were talking to head coach Jay Oliphant of Huntsville. It's always good to have you here it's your first time, Coach, but we're going to say, as always appreciate everyone from Huntsville coming in and being a part of this show. Josh touched on this. You grew up in this community, Coach. You got to play for not only Sam Houston, of course, but for Huntsville as well. Talk just a little bit about this community and how much it's meant to you and your family and that journey, Coach. And now you've got kids that are coming up through the program.
Well, it's been a great community. The Oliphant name kind of sticks out in the community. Most of the time when you think of Oliphant, you think of hard-working people, which we are. We kind of get after it pretty good. And we're kind of everywhere. And just coming up the community, it's always been good to us. And I have a wife, Tori, been married to her for 12 years, and I have 2 young sons. One is Jaden, is 14, and Jordan is 11. My oldest boy will be in high school this year, and I think he's going to play for me a little bit, so we'll see what happens.
Well, Coach, we're navigating through this whole pandemic and trying to figure out the next steps from you as a basketball coach. We've talked so much about football here on the show, and now it's nice to talk a little bit about basketball. How has that been for you and just your coaching? And still a lot of uncertainties out there, but how do you move forward and continue to keep these kids motivated, not knowing what's going to happen next?
Yeah, the main thing is just taking it day at a time. All we can do is control what we can do, which is prepare and get ready. I think the biggest thing that's going to hurt us this year is that, without tournaments, we lose about 10 to 11 games. And we moved to a district where we only have 6 teams instead of last year we had 11, so we had 20 district games. So now it's down to 10. So the main thing is we have to kind of come out, kind of polished already. Most of the time my guys don't really hit their stride until December, late November. But this year they got to hit it a little bit earlier.
So that's the way it's going to be, and we can only just speculate what's going to happen, but we still don't have any certainties. We do know that sports are on tap for high school, but we'll see how things work out. Coach, looking ahead to this season, talk about some of the strengths and some of the things that are going to carry over from last season and some of your kiddos there.
Well, we got a great core of guys coming back. We have Jadarian White, Ty Matthews, Taylor Harrell, and A.J. Wilson. I mean, all those guys now have a lot of playoff experience. They know what to expect. So I'm looking for big things for them. And then I got some more guys coming that can kind of come in behind them and give us something as well.
Right, and Coach, you mentioned some of those guys, obviously Jadarian coming back as the offensive MVP from last year, AJ the top newcomer in the league, and then Ty and Taylor both playing big roles, all district guys right there for you. How much confidence does that give you, knowing that you don't really have that roster turnover, and you have most of your key guys coming back?
Oh, it's very pleasing as a coach, but the main thing is you want the guys to stay level-headed. Last year was last year. That was big, but this is a new year. You want to focus on the things ahead and, keep a level head and come out and get busy. And that's the main thing we have to do.
Right. You talk about, keeping a level head and staying busy. Obviously y'all had kind of a historic level of success these past few years, especially in district play. Went on that 43-game league winning streak. What was that like for you as a coach, just going through that and kind of, I'm sure you have to kind of manage the players' expectations and things like that a little bit whenever you're on a run and haven't lost a game in 2 or so years.
Well, the funny thing about it, the first couple of years you don't really think about it until, it continues to grow. And
you're at 30.
Yeah, you're 30 or 40, and then I'm like, oh, wow. So, I mean, those teams there, that was very remarkable. You very seldom hear anything like that, having that kind of dominance in a district, And I think, losing that one game, I think, was a sigh of relief for some of the guys because, it got to be where it was a lot of pressure. And like I told my assistant coaches, I love the streak, but I'd rather lose a district game than to lose an area around game to Georgetown or a person like that. So, I mean, it was great. So the main thing is just try to start another.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier about y'all getting over that hump in the area around getting to the third round of the playoffs. Do you think hitting that adversity kind of late in the season maybe forced your team to refocus a little bit?
I think so. As far as playoff experience, that's as far as any of them have ever gone. We've never gotten past that round. So to kind of just be mentally tough and get over that niche because we had quite a few guys foul out. So, the main thing we want to tell kids is always stay ready. Those Quaterio fan and those guys were ready and they made a big play, and the third round is where we went.
Coach, talk a little bit about some of your senior leaders that have now moved up and this year going to be seniors. How important is their role as leaders, and what do you see in those guys and what they're teaching the underclassmen?
Well, the main thing, when you have a good group of leaders coming back, it takes some of the weight off the coach because they all know what they expect. They know what they expect of me. They know what I want. So, and a lot of times, instead of me doing all the barking, they can bark on their own teammates and peers, and a lot of times that comes over better. So, hopefully these guys here, they know what I expect. And I think Taylor and Ty and Jadarian and even AJ and those guys, I think they'll do a good job of leading the team this year.
Well, Coach, we'd love to ask you a couple more questions. You mind staying with us for another segment?
Sure, no problem.
Well, we'll get back here in just a moment. We're going to step aside. We're going to take a break. We've been talking to head basketball coach of Huntsville, Jay Oliphant. We'll be back in a few moments with the third segment. Stay with us, friends. This is Huntsville Sports Weekly here on KSAM and also on the Huntsville Item. We'll be right back in just a few moments. friends. Welcome back to Huntsville Sports Weekly. I'm Rob Hipp alongside Josh Criswell as we are again joined by head basketball coach of Huntsville, Coach Jay Oliphant. Appreciate you being here today. And, we're enjoying bringing the show, Coach, because we get to highlight so many in the community, our leaders, coaches, students. We're going to have some students on coming up here within the following weeks. We just want to be really safe with that, with the whole COVID pandemic and things going on. So we're being very mindful of that. But, Coach, we talk a lot about high school. We've talked a little college. Well, we talk a little pro now. You talk about in the NBA, man, and it's cool to hear your perspective as a high school coach. But things kind of got shook up this year. You go through basically just a long break. I'm a huge San Antonio Spurs fan, and for the first time in 20-plus years, the Spurs don't make the playoffs. From talking there at the break, it sounds like you're a Clippers fan, Coach. Tell us a little bit about that.
Not really. I kind of jump around. I was a Golden State fan there for a long time. They had Durant and Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson and all those guys. I just like watching good basketball. I really don't have a preference on a team in the NBA. I just like to see good basketball.
How does, these kids, of course, and I know when I was a kid, I looked up to a lot of NBA players. As a Spurs fan, David Robinson had it's a gentleman that I always wanted to meet. He had a huge impact on my life, in certain ways, just watching him and how he carried himself. From the kids' perspective and your students and seeing those kids, how does that impact of those players, what role does that have on their life? Because, a lot of them look up to those guys.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. With Steph Curry and Damian Lillard, now they got everybody want to shoot three-pointers, 3 or 4 feet behind the line. So the main thing is just, I think, it gives those kids a goal. Everybody, even when I was in high school, I had goals of trying to be in the NBA, and it gives you something to look forward to, something to work at, which is always good.
We talk about these guys, and of course, Coach, that's in the NBA, but they literally go on a 2 or 3 month plus break. How does that impact a player? It's kind of like you get settled down, and now you're having to be put in this bubble, and you're playing not in front of fans. The fans, of course, feed a lot of the action. So just from your perspective, what kind of impact does that have on those guys?
Well, I think the layoff doesn't bother them as much because they have personal trainers. They're still able to keep their game sharp and do what they need to do. I think the biggest difference is, of course, is the fan base. The kind of the fan gets you motivated, gets when you got a momentum going, they can stop it, they can build on it. I just think not having the fans, that would be the biggest issue they would have.
How much of the bowl games have you been watching now or in the playoffs?
I watch a lot of them. I stay up late. That's why I'm sleeping most of the time in the afternoon, staying up trying to watch games, with quadruple headers and stuff on them, trying to get as much of it in as I can.
Right. And are there any teams in particular that you think have a really good shot? Maybe if you could give us maybe one on each side.
Well, on the East, I like Toronto. They play that very well. They're very disciplined, play good defense, play good team basketball. And I like the Clippers up until last night. They kind of let me down last night. But as far as the West, I would go with the Clippers.
Now, obviously, I know a team a lot of people here are following are the Rockets. What do you think about them? And I know they had a game earlier today. I don't know if you're able to catch it, but 2-0 start to the postseason. What are your thoughts on what the Rockets can do this year?
I just think they let you down a lot.
We're used to it. I grew up in Houston, so I'm moved here after the first title.
So the small ball. When they're on and shooting the ball extremely well, they're gonna be tough to beat. But I think when they get against a team with some size that can really beat them up pretty good, they'll have problems.
I was sitting here thinking, guys, we're talking about the NBA and I'm talking about the Spurs. I said, wait a minute, I'm closer to Houston than I am San Antonio, so I got to be careful about that Spurs talk down here.
We'll come back to my show.
Well, Coach, appreciate your time and all that you do in the kids' life. That's what we want to highlight, Coach. We had a little fun talking pro, but what you do in these kids' lives is so important. You grew up here. You went through Huntsville High School. You played at Blinn. You played at Sam Houston State. Talking about specifically some of your play at Sam Houston State, you talk about that first time going to the NCAA tournament. You got to be a part of that for the Bearcats. What was that, kind of going back? I know we briefly mentioned that, but what was that like for you, Coach, as a player? That's something that every player dreams of, getting into a tournament like that.
Oh, especially for a mid-major. As a mid-major, you only get one selection. So, that year we had a phenomenal year. We won the conference. And then to win the conference and win the conference tournament, right here at home. At that time, the Southland would let you, if you were number one seed, you got to play home games. So we had home games all throughout. And they played SFA in the championship game, the rivals, to go. So, the crowd was electric, and to win that, it was a great feeling.
What do you still get those feelings whenever it's time for those Sam Houston State SFA games every year?
Oh, yeah, I get them, but it's not like when I played, you know.
What was that like as a player going into those Battle of the Piney Woods basketball games?
It was just a bloodbath, you know. Back then it was physical. It was just a good hatred between both schools, and it was always going to be a good game. I don't care if SFA wasn't very good at the time. You can rest for sure they're going to give you the best shot when they played Sam Houston.
Oh, and how did that feel? You know, your very last game on Johnson Coliseum was winning the conference tournament against SFA in front of the home fans, and I think they rushed the court, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They rushed the court, you know, and we all had a selection party and saw we played. So, it was a very great experience. You know, it's just bad that we ran into Florida the first round.
I was going to say, was that the Billy Donovan Florida team?
That was the Billy Donovan Florida team when they had Walsh Kid and Matthew Bonner.
Noah on that team?
Yeah,
too?
no,
that was later on.
That was later on, yeah. So, if we wouldn't have ran into them, I think we would have had a shot.
Well, Coach, we've enjoyed the chat here again with Huntsville Hornet head basketball coach Jay Oliphant doing amazing things in the community. Coach, a lot of folks, we've been blessed, a lot of folks who engage in this podcast that we do every Thursday here at 6:30. You can see it on KSAM and on the Facebook page. You can also check it out on the Huntsville Item Facebook page as well. Coach, I want to ask you a question. There may be somebody out there today that's saying, I really want to help out Coach and these kids. How can people in the community get involved? Maybe what are some of the needs from a coaching perspective that you have that the community can help out with?
Just the main thing when you see some young kids, just give them good advice. A lot of times when they hear from their parent all the time, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But when they hear from somebody else, it may stick in. And they always say it takes a village to raise kids, and it really does. So the main thing is when you see one and they're kind of doing something they don't have no business, kind of talk to them and kind of get them on the right track.
How have things, and I did want to ask you this, and definitely folks, whatever you can do to make a difference in these kids' lives, it's so important. You never know what word, what little tidbit. There's things that I learned from my coaches over the years that I still carry with me. We just lost a really good coach back in my hometown that made an impact. He started a Little Eagles Dribblers program and so many things, and it's that legacy, Coach. We hear so many times when we depart from this earth, there's a birthday and a death day, but it's the dash in between that is the life. And the legacy, Coach, that you're building and that you're working for these kids in this community is going to be something tremendous as we go on. But you've seen a lot of change here in Huntsville, the growth, and you see all the growth on 45. What has that been like for you seeing that change? And it's been positive in many ways.
It's been a big change. You used to come through Huntsville off 45 and it was dark. But now you see a lot of lights. You see Chick-fil-A and Whataburger and all those things. And as the community grows, of course, the economy grows. And I think it's good for Huntsville. The growth is.
Right, Coach, I figure we'll close this on one last basketball question. One of the things I've talked to Coach Southern with on the football side of things is about how his program's at a point now where the kids that come in middle school, they're in your program for 5, 6, 7 years before they're a senior. Do you kind of feel like you're in a similar position where you're kind of at a level where the program's able to continue sustaining success because these kids have that consistency for so many years?
Oh, without a doubt. And something that we started doing a couple of years ago is that with those middle school kids, we'll bust them over and let varsity coaches work them out and practice them so we get to make that connection with those kids at a young age. And that's always big because when a kid connects with you at a young age, they'll continue to want to play for you throughout their high school career.
And we mentioned, a couple of the seniors you got now. Were these guys that are on the team now that are your big players, or some of these guys that you saw at middle school and thought they maybe had some potential?
Yeah, they were at middle school at the time when I took over. They were seventh graders. So, just watch them kind of grow up and develop is always good and positive and good thing to watch.
Is there anyone in particular of them that's really kind of surprised you just with, whether it's growth in size or growth in their game that's really kind of wowed you from whenever you saw them as a 7th grader or whenever?
No, you can one of the kids I have now, you can tell they're going to be talented when they were in middle school. So things that they're doing now don't surprise me. It's just they need to surprise me now and do something that I hadn't seen.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you being here with us. Again, it's head Hornet basketball coach Jay Oliphant. Coach, before we let you go, just any final thoughts, maybe something you want to share with folks out there before we sign off today?
Just if you have time, come out and support all Hornets. The football team, boys basketball, girls basketball, anything you want to support, come out and support us.
Well, Coach, as I told you earlier before we went on, the station here is always open. Of course, the Item, feel free to come in anytime and chat with us. We want to be involved in the community with Huntsville ISD, with your program. that, there's a lot of focus on football, but we've got to remember there's so many other sports. We have volleyball, we have kids in the band, we've got track, so there's so many different things. Basketball is a big part of that. And so, Coach, just from all of us here at KSAM and at the Item as well, you're always welcome to come in. And please let us know what's going on with your kids, because we want to promote them in the community. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. We'll do.
Well, as always, friends, you can join us here every Thursday night, 6:30, as we will bring you Huntsville Sports Weekly. Josh, before we go, just any final thoughts from you, man?
No, I think, just one last thing I wanted to touch on. Obviously, one of the things that's just really impressed me is the energy at those Hornet basketball games, especially those. Obviously, there were some that weren't so competitive. Obviously a good thing for y'all on that end. But whenever it's a good game, that environment is electric, as you will see in any high school sports. I just recommend everyone get out to Paul Bohan Gym this year. No matter how many we let in, try to make sure you can get your hands on one of those tickets and get out there and support the Hornets.
And Coach, we'll be working to try to broadcast those games where we can, and so that's something that we want to work with the district this year as well, to bring those kids exposure. Because of COVID, of course, there may be limited seating as well in the gymnasiums, and so we've got to figure that out, and we'll try to help bring that and make it possible. Coach, as always, thanks for your time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, again, it's Huntsville Sports Weekly. Catch us back here next Thursday at 6:30. We'll bring you more of what's going on here in Huntsville, in the sports world. For Josh Criswell of the Huntsville Item, I'm Rob Hitt, Sports Director here at KSAM, reminding you tonight, friends, as I remind you every time, that we're not strong enough alone to make it on our own. We need each other, friends. Provide a word of encouragement. Lend a hand of support. Until next Thursday, good night, and God bless from Huntsville, Texas. We'll see you.
See you next time.
See you next time.